Welcome to Axiom Reporting, Web Client Training for Reports. Today, we will review the reports available in Axiom's Web Client. While dashboards, as you see here, are only viewed from the Web Client, reports may be viewed in either the Web Client or the Excel client. Viewing a report in the Excel client provides the ability to drill down to the transaction level. The Excel client also allows you to email reports. If using the Excel client, be sure to open Axiom from either Microsoft Edge or Internet Explorer browser. Otherwise, the Excel client will not launch. This module focuses on the web client. So for now, we will focus on viewing reports in the web client. So let's get started. First, the Comparative Fund Balances report. Let's open the navigation panel and choose the Comparative Fund Balances report to view. This report compares fund balances at a point in time for the past 5 years. The report displays as an empty report with no data. The report must be refreshed in order to view the data. Choose the filter icon to open the filter panel and choose Refresh Variables. The Comparative Fund Balances report has 5 possible refresh variables: chart, fiscal year, period, organization, and fund type filter, which is optional. So use the drop downs to make selections. As you can see, the org variable is required by this red vertical line. So use the search box to look up values. It is helpful to enter the chart first to search for orgs that begin with a certain number. Otherwise, a wildcard is assumed before and after the entered numbers, and the selections will show all options containing the numbers entered. There is currently an Axiom defect that lists the wrong title associated with roll-up orgs. So please go by the roll-up number desired and ignore the title until this defect is corrected. The checkbox beside the org or org roll-up must be selected for the value to return to the filter panel. More than one org may be selected at a time. To view all the orgs for Chart A, choose the highest level roll-up. So we'll make our selection and choose OK. The fund type filter for this report is optional. If nothing is selected for fund type, then all fund types will be presented. However, you may select a specific group or groups of fund types. For instance, if you only want to view research overhead funds, then check the box for research overhead. Once all your variables are entered, choose Apply to refresh the report. To clear selections, you may use the X to the side of the variable selection or Clear All to clear all variable selections. The header of the report at the top left shows the refresh variables chosen. On the top right, special notes are included. It states prior year balances are as of month end selected. So if the fiscal period or month selected is February, then all columns will show the February balances for that particular fiscal year. If the fiscal period selected is period 12, then all columns will show year-end balances for that fiscal year. And if the current fiscal year is incomplete and period 12 is chosen, then the data for that fiscal year will be through the current information available. So at the top right of the report, 2 export options are available: Save as PDF and export to Excel. The Save as PDF is an okay option for a small report, and the Export to Excel is a good option even though you lose some of the pretty formatting. So this report is grouped by fund type and shows headers and subtotals by groups. There are two special columns across the top. Home org, this is the default org. If the default org is not populated and multiple orgs are used, we assigned a home org based on either the most often used or the Dean's Office org. Home program, this is the default program. If the default program is not populated, we assigned a home program based on the most often used program. The reason we apply this approach of home org and home program is that each fund balance should only be owned by one group. The balance sheet or general ledger side of Banner does not track orgs and programs for assets and liabilities and fund balances. The second report available is the Comparative Revenues, Expenses, and Transfers report. This report is similar to two ePrint reports, the Comparative Revenues, Expenses, and Transfers with Budget and the Comparative Revenues, Expenses, and Transfers month and year to date. This is one report with two different views. The first view is BGT or budget, and it's similar to the first ePrint report I mentioned. And it's also similar to budget status or FGI BDST form in Banner. The second view is MTD or month to date and year to date report, similar to the second ePrint report I mentioned. So let's use the filter panel in our taskbar to define the refresh variables for this report. This report has 9 possible refresh variables. The first 5 variables are required. Those are fiscal year, chart, month or period, fund, and org. The optional variables are account category, for which operating expenses, revenue, salaries, wages, and benefits, or transfers can be chosen. A specific account code, a specific program code, or a specific activity code. So let's use our drop-downs to make selections, or we can use the search box to look up variables and pick from a list. You can use roll-ups or specific codes. A helpful tip is to use the chart first to search for variables that begin with a certain number. Otherwise, a wildcard is assumed before and after the entered numbers. The checkboxes in the pick list must be selected for values to return to the filter panel. So make sure you check the checkbox. Once all variables are entered, choose Apply to refresh the report. Our report has refreshed, so let's take a look. The top left header contains our refresh variables. Beside the variables are special notes. This note states that funds associated with a grant, contract, project, any type of inception to date funds are excluded. These are excluded since the report is viewing data on a fiscal year basis. Across the top right of the report is a button to collapse details. This removes the separate account codes listed and only shows the account type total. The button changes to expand details when accounts are collapsed. Click the button again to expand or show all accounts. The next button is MTD. As mentioned previously, this report has two views, BGT for budget or MTD for month-to-date, year-to-date. The report opens in the budget view. To toggle to the month-to-date, year-to-date view, choose MTD. The view changes and the month-to-date button becomes BGT for budget view. Use the button to toggle between the two views. As mentioned in our last report, there are buttons for Save as PDF and Export to Excel. Our budget view shows columns for adjusted budget, year-to-date, encumbrances, and available balance for the prior year and the current year as of the period chosen. So this looks like our budget status or FGI BDST screen, but with a parameter to choose as of a certain date or month-end period. The month-to-date, year-to-date view shows columns comparing 1 month's activity for the prior year versus the current year with a dollar variance and a percent variance. For instance, this just shows our February activity for fiscal year 2019 versus our February activity for fiscal year 20 with a variance dollar amount and a variance percentage. Then the next columns compare year-to-date activity for the prior year versus the current year with a dollar variance and a percent variance. Our third report is the multi-year actuals with budget. This report is similar to the budget development report provided by the Budget Office. It has 3 full year columns to compare actuals, 2 columns for prior year-to-date actuals and current year-to-date actuals, and 2 columns for prior year permanent budget and current year permanent budget. This report is for Chart A only. Let's use our filter panel in our taskbar to define our refresh variables for this report. The multi-year actuals with budget report has 5 possible variables: fiscal year, period, org, fund type, and fund type filter, which is optional. The fund types available are your spendable fund types: education in general, unrestricted, restricted, and plant, similar to your sources and uses report. The fund type filter depends on the fund type group that was chosen previously. So education in general shows you each fund that's available within that fund type group. You can select specific funds or just select all by not making a choice. So use the drop downs and pick list to make your selections. Once all variables are entered, choose Apply to refresh the report. Notice the refresh variables listed in the top left of our header. Special notes are listed on the right side. This note states that Fund 11999 Net Position Reserve is excluded from the Education in General funds. It also says to ignore permanent budget when restricted fund types are selected. This is because contract and grant funds follow an inception to date year instead of a fiscal year, so the budget may not follow the actuals for these funds. The fourth report is Statement of Changes in Fund Balance by Fund Type. This report has columns for fund balance at the beginning of the fiscal year, revenues, fund additions, expenditures, fund deductions, transfers, and balance at the end of year or through the period that's chosen. So let's make our refresh variable selections by going to the filter panel in the taskbar. There are 6 possible refresh variables: chart, fiscal year, period, organization, fund types to include. Our choices are all or sources and uses for Chart A only. These are our spendable funds in those categories of E&G, unrestricted, restricted, and plant. And then the fund type filter, which is optional. So let's use our drop downs and pick list to make selections. Once all the variables are entered, choose Apply to refresh the report. Notice the refresh variables at the top left of the report. Special notes on the right include negative amounts indicate a credit. Credit fund balances are funds available. Debit or positive fund balances indicate deficits. Notice the button to change the view of the report to expand encumbrances. This view adds 2 columns to the report after the balance end of year column, one for encumbrance control or encumbrances and one for balance available. Toggle back to collapse encumbrances. This report also has the 2 columns for home org and home program, like the first report we reviewed for comparative fund balances. The final report to view in the web client is the Sources and Uses report with fund type detail. The Sources and Uses report shows the spendable funds for a college, division, or org. There are 2 views for this report, a summary view and a fund type detail view. This is a Chart A only report. Let's choose our refresh variables by going to the filter panel on the taskbar. There are 4 possible refresh variables for this report: fiscal year, period, org, and include fund type details with the options yes and no. Use the drop downs and pick list to make selections. Once all variables are entered, choose Apply to refresh the report. Our refresh variables appear in the top left header. This report shows the sources for a particular college, division, or org chosen. Sources are budget dollars for E&G, education in general, revenues and recovery, less any expenses, encumbrances, and plus transfers in and minus transfers out. Columns are broken into category for education in general, your operating funds that come from tuition and fees and state appropriation dollars. These are funds 11,000 through 11,012 and Fund 11999 Net Position Reserve. Your unrestricted funds include designated operations, research overhead, internal grants, unrestricted endowment income, cost share, and auxiliary funds. The restricted column includes restricted contracts and grants, restricted gifts, and restricted endowment income funds. The plant column includes permanent R&R, renewal and replacement funds, and retirement of indebtedness funds. The last two columns are for current year-to-date total and prior year-to-date total. The magnifying glass beside prior year-to-date total allows a limited drill-down capability to the FOAP. That's the fund, org, account, and program, but not all the way down to transaction level detail. If you chose to include fund type details where you said yes in your filter, you can change the view by choosing Expand Details in the top right corner. This will show fund type columns that make up the unrestricted, restricted, and plant categories. Other reports may be added to the web client in the future. The basic navigation for reports is the same. Please check out our other training videos for Axiom. If you have any questions about Axiom, please contact the Office of Finance, Technology, and Data Integrity. Thank you.